Listen, my role, I feel, that I do here at the Boardroom Company is to inspire people to want to join corporate boards and to think about their corporate board career a little bit more seriously. Today, I'm going to be taking you through a few slides, but I do want to pause and ask people to shout questions, comments, anything like that in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on it. I know Linda will as well. But today I'll take you through what is the sort of standard process of what if you want to get onto a corporate board, what are some of the things you should be doing? And I'd like you all to get a pen and paper and just think about maybe some of the things you're already doing and then some of the things you might not be doing. And then maybe we can talk about those as well. Like, what are some of the things that you should be doing? And then I'll also talk about what are some of the things you should not do. Because I see, again, having worked with individuals who want to get onto boards for many years now, I've seen where they've been making mistakes and what some of those common mistakes are. So I'll be listing some of those as well. But feel free, anyone, shout out in the chat if you have a question along the way. And I would be happy to answer those. So let's get started. And like I said, make notes along the way. I think there's going to be some comments in here and some advice that I think will be helpful. So let's talk about corporate board careers. And I specifically put corporate here because we're not going to be talking about nonprofit organizations or advisory boards as much, although advisory boards, they will come up in this conversation. They're a great stepping stone to a corporate board, but I know the group here are really looking to excel and get to some of those corporate fiduciary board responsibilities. So why should you serve on boards? Just ask yourself. I don't know what the answer is to that, but maybe write it down. Why do you want to serve on a board? I think it's really important. I think it's really important that you know what the answer is to that, and why you're looking to do it. For a lot of people, it's about purpose. For a lot of my clients, they're looking for purpose. They're looking to add something additional to what they already do. They really enjoy the advisory role. They also want to learn. I would say that's probably the number one thing across all of my clients. It says they are lifelong learners. So they never want to stop learning. And they think, well, into retirement, I don't really want to just sit and do nothing. I actually want to continue. So it's actually a retirement plan. So for a lot of you, you may be thinking it's a retirement plan. One piece of advice I give you is do not wait until retirement to start your board career. Because when you do, and I've worked with a lot of people who reach 65, 68 and go, right, I'm ready to join a board now. They have zero board experience. Everyone around them competing for the same roles have experience. And so you lose the momentum there, right? And also if you retire, spend a year out, and then try to get on a board, it is a lot harder. So my advice would be start early, start small, start now, right? If you do want to get on a board, even if retirement is 10, 20, maybe even 30 years away, right? Think about what you can be doing today to get on that board. So let's talk about how to get on a board. So I'm going to walk you through the strategic plan that I take my clients through. And this is a strategic plan that I think when you look at it and you review it, you'll think, yeah, this actually makes sense. This is probably the same sort of plan you would do in any career change or career move, but I'm going to make this very relatable to corporate boards. So this should be some of the things I'm talking about here should be new. So the first thing you want is a strategic plan. And I really mean there needs to be a written plan. Okay. It can't just be, well, I'm thinking about it. I actually got a message from a client or somebody I'm speaking to, but she said, yeah, I'm still considering boards. That's not enough, right? There needs to be a plan. There needs to be a goal. You need to have something that you're working toward. You can't just be thinking about it. So make sure that you really understand that the plan is important. And this is what the plan should essentially you should be thinking about. The first piece is which boards are right for you. I want you to write that down. Which boards are right for me? Okay. Now, not all boards are created equal. I'm sure you can imagine that's probably not a surprise to you all, but I tell you now, a lot of people come to me and say, I'm just looking to get onto a board, but they have absolutely no idea what kind of board that is. And often they're honest about it. They say, I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I think, I've been told I'd be good on a board. Well, that's great, but Really, really important to narrow down your search. Think about it like this. Imagine you went out tomorrow and told people you were looking for a job. And that's it, right? I'm looking for a job. Hey, do you know anyone who's got a job going? Is there any jobs? Right? Same thing with boards. Hey, I'm looking for a board. You can't go broad like that. You have to go specific. Let me explain another reason why going specific is really important. Your strategic plan to get onto a public company board is going to be different from your strategic plan to get onto a private company board. You're going to be talking to different people. You're going to have a different document. It's going to say something different. Your value proposition is going to be different, right? Public companies, it's shareholder relations, it's activist investors. You don't get any of that in a private company. So your language and what you bring to that board is going to change very quickly. So think through what is the right fit for you. Now, there's many different ways to look at that, and I'd be happy to have a quick chat with any of you, by the way, about your own board careers. If you want to put it in the chat, we want to, have a conversation in the Q&A. But, I'll give you an example. If you have worked at a family-owned business, the chances of you being on a family-owned board are really, really high. In fact, I would say I don't know one family-owned business that has an independent board member who has not worked or has some experience at family-owned businesses. PE-backed boards. PE firms tend to favor people who understand private equity. Again, a lot of this, I'm sure, is making sense to you, but maybe until now, you've never really thought about really narrowing down your search and being very thoughtful and mindful about exactly where you're going with your board career and what types of boards are a very good fit for you. And it doesn't need to be industry. Don't think narrowly about industry. It can be the type of board, again, ownership structure, size. What kind of problems are they facing, right? Are they facing major transformation challenges? Are they expanding internationally? Or are they just launching lots and lots of new products? Do they have supply chain issues, right? All of these things can be part of your, the direction that you want to go in as well. So first things first, if you want to ramp up your board career, you want to get ready, be specific, know where you're going. Another reason, and maybe we'll talk about it a little later as well, I may repeat this because it is so important. It also depends who you are going to speak to, right? A publicly traded company, generally the Fortune 1000 are covered by search firms, maybe 1,000, 1,500 or something like that. Private companies don't use recruiters as much, right? So if you're talking to Spencer Stuart, but you want to get on a private family-owned board, you might be having the wrong conversation with the wrong person or the right conversation with the wrong person, right? So think about the whole strategy changes the minute you decide where you're going. Let's talk about the next phase, which for a lot of folks starting out in their board career, this is what I hear. A lot of them say, "Oh, I have a board bio." Like they don't know what board they want to join. They don't have a pitch and they don't know who they're going to go speak to, but they have the document. And I think that makes sense for a job search. Like you'd get your resume ready before you went out to speak to people. Board search is not like a job search. So for everything you know about a job search, throw that out the window. The board search is different. And one of the biggest things is the documentation. It depends on, again, the type of board that you're going to be joining. So don't worry too much about the document just yet. My advice, focus on what kind of boards you want to join. And then the second piece is, what are you going to say and how are you going to say it? Now, for most of you, and for a lot of my clients too, I had somebody actually came to me recently and said, by the way, there's 3 types of people I work with. I just mentioned this to Linda before everybody came on. People who've never served on boards, people who have served on boards but want to get onto bigger boards, or people who have been kind of spinning their wheels and they're not quite sure what, why they're making mistakes. They're just not getting on a board. And time again, those individuals come to me and say, I think it's my board bio. I think that's the problem. And I say, well, how many people have seen the board bio? And in the last 6 months, I say, well, no one.
I think I left a caddy of cleaning supplies.
How can it be the board bio? So what you say and how you say it and who you say it to is actually more likely in reality, that's actually where people are going to see you and hear you versus reading a piece of paper. So again, I'll challenge you all. I'm not saying the board bio isn't important. It absolutely is. It'll come up later. But I would challenge you all, what exactly are you saying to people when you meet with them and you say, hey, I'm actually looking for a corporate board? The first thing to think about is, do you bring the confidence? Okay, now confidence is absolutely essential. I'm going to go through one of the things that I say never, ever to do, which is don't ask anybody what they think you should do in your board career. So I see this happen a lot. This is a big mistake people make. They go and have really great meetings they have meetings with really great people, with influential people in the space. And they say, well, what do you think what kind of boards do you think I should join? That is absolutely recipe for disaster, recipe for failure, because the other person thinks, wow, Naomi, she's great, but she doesn't seem to know what she wants on a board. Like, I don't know if I'll introduce her to anyone because she seems like she's right at the beginning, the discovery phase, right? You never want to show anyone your discovery phase, except for if you're working with someone, right, to kind of improve it. Or maybe you are all, partnered up and you're mentoring together, and you're getting ready to join corporate boards that way. Bring the confidence in your pitch, in your value proposition. Know where you're going, know what you bring. Then the second one is, who's your audience, right? Like, who are you actually speaking to? Make it relevant for them. So again, it's that PE firm. What are you going to start talking about? EBITDA. You're going to talk about value prop. You're going to talk about growth. You're going to talk about transformation. If you're talking to a family-owned business, you might want to add in about your own family values and a little bit about you on the personal side. Don't want to know that, right? So who are you speaking to? Tailor that verbal value proposition to the audience that you're trying to reach or that you're trying to, work with, essentially. So really, really important who you're speaking to. And then, of course, what kind of board is it, right? Like, there's two pictures here. Have a look at this one, right? So this board, I don't know, I'm going to make a quick assumption here. There's a lot of judgment going, but, this is like a company in Dubai or something, right? Oil and gas, something very sort of modern and very kind of chic, right? And then maybe Paris, right? And then we've got this room, right, which seems a little bit outdated. It's kind of, it's black and white for a start. You got pictures on the wall on the right-hand side. That might be the previous board members or the family. This might be a family-owned business, right? So which board do you want to join? How, what's the culture of the board? And how do you bring that into your narrative about what you value and what do you bring? And what kind of environment is going to be a really good fit for you? The more that you have this locked down, right, in your pitch, when you speak to people, the more likely you are to get to your destination faster. Because someone will listen and say, that's really interesting. I actually know someone who's a CEO of a family-owned business. I mean, would it be helpful for me to introduce? Yes, it would. Rather than saying, I'm just looking for board seats of corporations of, 5 million and above, right? What does that mean, right? So you help people narrow down their network to think, okay, who is a good person for them to speak to? So verbal pitch is absolutely essential. If I were to have any of you walk away, would be to say, have I got that locked down? And the verbal pitch, a few pieces of advice on the pitch. Number one, make sure you use the right language. So board language, I want to hear what committees you've served on. I want to hear about the shareholder value that you've brought in the businesses that you've been at. Not just I led big teams. I don't care that you've led a big team. That's not what you need to do on my board. So this narrative, this value proposition speech is going to be very different from what you're used to. May feel a little bit uncomfortable too. So just be ready for that. Let's move into board documents, because this is really important. You show up, you've had a really great meeting, influential person, you've told them that you're actively pursuing corporate boards that look like this, and this is your value proposition, this is what you bring. And then they say, oh, wow, I'm so impressed. I have somebody I'd like you to meet. Do you have anything you can send me? And you go, oh, oh no, I don't have anything, right? So the document is important, and it should supplement who you are, and it should reflect who you are. But as I said before, I don't know anyone who has got on a board uniquely from a board document. Okay, there's a lot of other pieces of the puzzle involved. But what should it tell? What should it say, right? It should tell your personal story. It should tell your story, but it should tell your story from the perspective of a board. So I often use this analogy, and I'm an endurance athlete, so I like using sports analogies and sort of marathon analogies and things like that. But I do the analogy, and I live in Florida, so I do the tennis versus pickleball one, right? So we're going to play pickleball, and on the drive over to the pickleball courts, you just keep talking about your tennis and how great you are at tennis. And I'm sitting here saying, well, I often tennis players are good at pickleball, right? So executives are pretty good on boards, but I just haven't heard how this person's going to play pickleball. And it may be because you've never played before, and that's why you're telling me about your tennis game. But what I'm saying is research the pickleball game and then tell me how you think you're going to perform. So you can say, listen, I'm pretty fast on my feet, so I think I'll be able to move around the court really well. Hey, I know the rules already. If anyone's played pickleball, it's impossible to learn the rules. It's very difficult. It's not like tennis at all. So again, just understand where you're going, know the game that you're getting into, and then tell me how you would perform. That's kind of the mindset. If you've never served on a board, it's okay. You've never played pickleball, but you can research the game, and you can see, and you know yourself well enough to know which parts you'll be really good at. Of course, for everyone here on the call, you're probably thinking, do I do the board bio? Do I do the board resume? Lots of options. My advice, the more formal the board environment, the bio, plus an executive resume. Always send them together. If it's a PE firm or an industry that's fast paced, they're never going to read all this stuff on the left-hand side. Okay, that's a bio on the left, that's a board resume on the right, or somebody could call it also an executive resume. But really, really important to understand your audience. This goes right back to our first step, right? What kind of board do you want to join? A family-owned business, I go with the bio on the left, plus an executive resume. And in the bio, I would talk about my own family values. So as a board director, I value the following. If it's a publicly traded company, I'd want to make sure that I have a lot of language about boards and public company boards. I would use a board bio for a public company plus an executive resume. But, if I'm going for an advisory board, I'm going to touch on that just a little bit here. I would use the board resume, and I would just send that one document. As long as it's got your career chronology in there, I think it's good enough, right? And then even if it were a private company, PE backed, I'd go with the board resume too. They don't have time to read through all of that. So, and I probably have 100 other examples, but those are just a couple to kind of give you a sense of where does the document matter and who's going to read it and why it's going to either impress or it's going to put someone off. I want to also talk about personal brand on LinkedIn. Now, I'm sure for a lot of you very senior and very successful executives, this is a no-brainer. This is actually a former client of mine. This was his LinkedIn profile on the left-hand side, and then this was his LinkedIn profile on the right-hand side. After we had gone through some of the stuff on LinkedIn. I mean, it was like night and day. This person on the left-hand side looks junior, looks like they work in, and this is not his role, by the way, but looks like, somebody in a team. I mean, he was running major businesses, right? Suddenly on the right-hand side, we've got this humble confidence. He looks more senior. He almost looks like he owns a business, right? Like he's gone like even further ahead. So just think about what your personal brand is online. I want you to look at social media. I want you to look at LinkedIn. I want you to look at any online videos of you. Like, for example, there could be, like this. This is a recording. Maybe this ends up online. What is the brand? What are you putting out there? Is it board level? Okay. So think about the documentation that you use, but also think about how does your personal brand show up everywhere else? Is it board ready? Okay. Does it appear that you are board level? Okay. And for a lot of you, if you're entrepreneurs and you own your own business, Your profiles may all be about your business. I would never recommend anyone completely change that, right? Okay, we'll get rid of that and we'll do board. No, I don't recommend that. But there's a way to balance the two. There's actually a way to make the two of them work hand in hand. And just a side note, because this thought just came to me, and I know I'll forget it if I don't say it. A lot of my clients find board positions through clients that they work with. And so this is another piece of advice, and I'll talk about it later, but always be open and looking for opportunities. And if you're board ready, you will find more opportunities than if you're not board ready, only because you'll be asking questions. So for example, you may have a consulting gig with ABC firm, right? And then at the end of the consulting gig, they go, oh, well, it's great. We really enjoy working with you. Have a nice rest of year. And you put the phone down. But if you're board ready and you're thinking about it, you might go, hey, just before you leave, I know we've finished working together. I'm no longer a consultant, but I did notice that you have a board, or you have an advisory board. I would be open to exploring opportunities on that board. Here's what I could possibly do for you. Well, you already know the clients so well, right? So it wouldn't be hard to put a nice pitch together to say, these are some of the things that I think I could contribute. And I had a look at your board and I noticed that I have certain skills that, or experience that maybe isn't on your board, and it could be valuable to you going into 2025 or 2026 or whatever. Always be open to opportunities. And if you always have the right brand, you're always showing up in the right way, those opportunities will find you faster than you will. Nearly at the end here, let's talk about relationships. I am a huge believer and proponent of people spending 80% of their time with people that they trust and they like. Okay, so remember that. You probably don't need to build one new relationship in order to get on your first board. And everyone here on the call today, you're already part of amazing networks like this one, like Her Leadership. And it's so important that you really build those relationships. You know, just meeting lots and lots of new people never really gets anywhere. I mean, if I meet someone for the first time and then I hear about a board position, I don't know, it's unlikely I'd be like, I really recommend her. She's amazing. I met her for 30 minutes, right? That probably isn't going to happen. But I've known you for 10 years, or even we worked together back in 2002, right? And I've sort of followed your career and your trajectory, and you've always maintained a professionalism, and you've always been consistent and all of these things. And I've trusted you, and we went to meetings together and work trips. That's different. Right now, I'm going to say, you know, I put my, you know, I'll back this person because they might actually make me look good, right? Especially if you introduce them to somebody who's very high level. So people that trust you and like you and have known you for many, many years are really important when you think about your relationships. And I want you all to take a spreadsheet and start to write down who those people are, and think deep, think long and hard. Who are the people that you worked with in 2002? Where are they today? I had a client of mine, and she was a very successful CFO. She had just retired. And I said to her, you know, how is your network looking? And she's like, oh, yeah, well, there's this person that I know. And then I said, this is interesting. It's all these people you know today. I said, what about people from the past? And I said, you worked at Merrill Lynch back in the 90s. Oh, she said, no. She said, those guys, I was on a trading desk. Those guys were always messing around, right? Like, of course they were back in the 90s. Everyone was in the, you know, everyone was between the ages of 20 and 28, right? So she said, oh, those guys, no. Anyway, we looked up a few of them and she nearly fell off her chair. Oh my God, you know, the guy that was always making the jokes and messing around and coming in late, he was the CEO of a company. Now the guy was another CFO, right? And so her opportunity now was to reconnect with these people, not to go pitching them hard on her board career, but to start thinking, wow, so there are some real influential people that I've known for so long that trust me, like me, right? Who have worked with me. And they would probably be more likely to introduce me to somebody than the random person I met at a conference, right? So really think deep. Investors, people around you. I personally really, I promote speaking to executives. So executives make a lot of decisions about their boards versus board members. So if your tactic and your strategy is just to meet board members, you're missing a huge portion of the industry that make the decisions, which are CEO, CFO. If it's a big enough company, general counsel and COO and people like that will also be aware of potential board openings coming up in the future, probably faster than the board members themselves. So have a think about that. Also decision makers, sorry, this photo is a little grainy, but it is underwater, so it kind of makes sense. But in this particular case, like, decision makers, who are they? In a previous career, I worked at a company called BoardX, and we would work with all of the organizations that surrounded boards. And something I learned was that corporate lawyers get calls all the time from their clients saying, hey, we need a new board member. Do you know anyone? Investment bankers get that call as well. Management consultants, McKinsey, Bain, I mean, those kind of management consultants, they get calls all the time asking, hey, do you recommend, do you know anyone? Okay. So again, if your relationships are solely focused on who do I know who's a board member, there's this whole world that are about to get the fish and who are surrounding the fish, which in this particular case is a metaphor for boards. But who is close enough, who is closer than you think to the target that you want to get to? And rather than targeting one person to get to one board, why don't you go to your corporate lawyer friend and tell them about your desire to join corporate boards? The more people that know, the higher the chance that you will get a board role. I do want to talk about one other thing to never do. So something to avoid when you do have conversations with people, and I recommend one-to-one conversations, not in a huge group setting, but when you do have a one-to-one conversation, don't ever ask for help and don't ever ask for a favor and don't ever ask for anyone to introduce you to anyone. Your achievements and your board level value prop should speak for itself. So when you come to the meeting and you say, hey, yes, I'm doing this, my life, let me update you on what's going on, family. Oh, and I'm also currently actively pursuing corporate boards. These are the types of boards that I want to join. I'm looking at a 1 to 5 year plan. These are the 3 things that I bring to boards. This is my board experience, and these are my values at the board level. And then you just stop talking. And that is it. And you should, and I have another, I always encourage people to get the other person to speak first. When the other person speaks first, you learn more about them and you can tailor your pitch to them. So I would always recommend in a one-to-one that you jump in to say, hey, so-and-so, oh, I'd love to hear about you. What have you been up to? Then you do yours second, okay? But you never need to ask for help. You should be helping them. They should be helping you. It should be a two-way street. It's never a one-way street. If anyone hasn't read it, I'm sure you all have, but it's a very old book and in some cases a little old-fashioned, but the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, actually speaks very well to this process. So really knowing who you're speaking to, tailoring your pitch, and having them talk about themselves is much, much better than you spending all your time talking about yourself. Okay. Let's talk about the approach. When you do meet with someone one-to-one, it should be a win-win. There should not be one person who feels like they walked away from the meeting with a win, right? You're meeting your influential person. You're going to talk to them about your board career. You're not asking for help. You're not asking for a favor, nothing like that. But what you are going to do is deliver your message, tell them about your desire to join a corporate board, stop talking and have a conversation and see where that goes. And there's 2 outcomes. One is the person goes, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I actually know someone that you should speak to. And boom, great, right? You're now on to the next and you're winning and everybody feels like they're on ready to get going. Or no response at all. Now, I see that as a win as well, believe it or not. So if they just go, oh, that's good. That's great that you're joining boards. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Well, I hope you have a great weekend and I'll see you soon. Boom, phone goes down. Whoa, what did I do wrong? What happened? In fact, it's a win because one more person out there in an influential position knows about your desire to join a corporate board. And if they get a call in the next week, the next month, the next year or two, and someone says, hey, you know, I'm really, again, you know, they get that call, hey, we're looking to bring on new board members, or we're looking to build a whole new board for our IPO. You know, do you know anyone who would have these things? And they go, oh, that's interesting. I remember those things coming up in that conversation with that person I had, right? And so it's a win just by telling someone about your career, and it's a win if they refer you or there's some kind of follow-up afterwards. So these are all very good meetings. And actually, if you're an entrepreneur as well, you know, use these meetings to reconnect with people. You never know. If it's not a board win, it might be a win for your business too. So it's never time wasted, right? When you're speaking to these types of people at that level. So 3 things to remember today on your board career is prepare for it, position yourself for it, and pursue it. Go after it. Don't sit back. I mean, that, like I said, I got this message literally this morning, and I hear it all the time. Oh yeah, I'm still, you know, I'm still open to board positions. Not open. You should be pursuing them. You should be going after them. So be active, go after them, and you're more likely to get them. And my number one piece of advice is never give up. Because just like this guy, he gave up right before he found what he was looking for. That's when, you know, that's when you give up, is when you are just about to get there. So it can be frustrating. The whole process can take a long time. It can be longer than you think. And sometimes you might feel like maybe you're not getting ahead. It's always good to have a group. And I'm so glad that, you know, Linda and the team here set up these meetings with you all on a regular basis so that you can connect with other people who might be going in the same direction. So if you're all seeking corporate boards, you can kind of come together and say, yeah, you know, it was a bad month. I didn't feel like I made much progress, or, hey, I felt like I did make progress, and you can kind of compare notes. But if you give up, you absolutely will not get on a board. So I just want to leave you all with that.